favorite principles of animation is the principle of arcs. Arcs in our scene allow us to create this wonderful sense of movement. The moment we begin to deconstruct all of our animations and all of the movements that we're accustomed to seeing out there in the real world, we find pretty quickly that arcs are everywhere. A simple animation of a character running down the street is really a whole series of arced movement paths superimposed on top of all of these individual character pieces. If we were to look at the top of a character's head as he goes up and down, the movement that we see is one of an arc. The elbows create arcs. The knees, as they pump up and down as the character runs, creates an arc. The ankles create arcs. Arcs are everywhere. Arcs in our environment provide us with this great illusion of gravity. Gravity is the one force, well, maybe not the one, but one of the forces that we can't turn off in our world. It's always pushing and pulling against us. And as artists and animators, it's really important that we start to infuse this illusion of gravity in all the drawings that we produce. The moment our audience begins to see something that looks familiar to them, that includes gravity, the more often they are likely to buy in and to believe that these characters are in fact alive. We remind them of a little bit of our physical natural world, and all of a sudden our characters are coming to life. The drawings that are really just nothing more than stacks of paper are now full of life because our audience is seeing something that they're reminded of. I love this illusion of a simple bow and arrow. Without the arc, you can see pretty quickly here that the arrow just kind of ends up right in the wall. It doesn't look real. It looks static. It looks completely devoid of any sort of life. It doesn't have all the necessary information that we need for our audience to buy into this idea that this arrow is alive. But the moment we put an arc on that motion path, our audience is then starting to see that this is something that is in fact real, an idea that they have seen before imposed in our characters. Now, arcs also provide us with a tremendous amount of fluidity in our animations themselves, and I think this is something that we should be looking at all the time. As animators, we want to see this fluidity. We want to see organic movements. Over and over and over again, our world is organic and round. Our animation should include that as much as we can. So arcs give us that fluid movement that naturally we see in the movements of our friends, families, animals, anything, our imagination, that's all around us. That fluidity is incredibly important for us to see. Now, without them, it looks wrong. With arcs, we create this interconnected world that provides a tremendous amount of realism for our audience. It also provides us with a tremendous amount of depth. Objects are no longer just flatly moving from point A to point B. Now with arcs, an airplane can swing by the grass and produce this great illusion of depth inside of our scene itself. An airplane would never do this, but as animators, we need to remind our audience as much and as often as we can that these objects are alive, that they're being pushed and pulled against natural forces within inside the scene. In doing so, we also create this wonderful illusion of depth in our environment, and it's something that I find just incredibly, incredibly attractive. Now, one of the things that you see all the time when it comes to working with arcs is the movement of our characters. Our objects don't move linearly in a straight line. Nothing in our world works in a straight line. Everything moves along an arced path. Without that arced path, our objects are going to feel vague and lifeless and robotic, all words that we don't want to use to describe our characters, right? We want them to be full of life and to be jumping off of the screen, grabbing our attention. Arcs are an easy way for us to start to remind our audience that these drawings have sprouted to life and are bouncing and moving and flying and running across the page to communicate to you, the audience. Arcs are a fantastic addition to our principles of animation, and we should be looking for every opportunity to make our movements organic, to make them round, to make them full of arcs so that they're in turn full of life.